Hello and welcome to The Psychology of Us with Professor RJ Starr, where we explore the mind's influence on life, relationships, and society. RJ Starr is an existential psychologist, professor, and author dedicated to exploring the core challenges of human existence, how we find meaning, embrace responsibility, and navigate life's challenges. Known for a thought-provoking yet accessible approach, RJ inspires listeners to cultivate self-awareness, emotional intelligence, authenticity, and purpose. This podcast is designed for all psychology enthusiasts, practitioners, students, and anyone curious about why we think, feel, and behave the way we do. Each episode unpacks theories, explores complex questions, and offers insights that deepen understanding of the human experience. So settle in, stay curious, and discover the psychology of us.
Welcome to The Psychology of Us with me, Professor RJ Starr. I'm so glad you've joined me today, because we're exploring a topic that goes far deeper than it might seem at first glance, the psychology of what we wear. This isn't about fashion or trends. It's about the profound ways our clothing choices influence how we think, feel, and interact with the world around us. Think about the last time you dressed up for something important, a job interview, a formal event, or maybe even a big date. Do you remember the way it changed your posture, your confidence, or even how you spoke? That shift wasn't just in your head, it was a real psychological phenomenon. What's fascinating is that the clothes we wear don't just affect how others perceive us. They also change how we perceive ourselves. Clothing is much more than a superficial detail of our lives. It's a form of nonverbal communication, a way to send messages about who we are, what we value, and even how we're feeling. When you think about it, what we wear is one of the first things others notice about us, and whether we like it or not, it creates an impression. But here's where it gets really interesting. Clothing also creates an impression on us. It changes how we think, how we move, and even how we process the world around us. Let me share something from my own experience. Years ago, when I was just starting out as a professor, I was asked to deliver a lecture at a conference. I'd prepared my material thoroughly, but on the morning of the event, I felt uneasy. Something was missing. I looked down at my outfit. It was presentable, but not intentional. I quickly changed into my best suit, and when I stepped in front of the audience, I didn't just look more professional, I felt it. That small change in what I wore altered my mindset entirely. It gave me the confidence to speak with clarity and authority. That's what we're talking about today, the psychological power of clothing. This episode is about much more than appearance. It's about understanding how our attire influences our psychology. From the concept of enclothed cognition, which shows how clothing can alter our mental state, to the way our wardrobe choices reflect our identity, we'll explore the deep connections between what we wear and how we live. And in today's world, where casual clothing often feels like the norm, it's worth asking, what are we losing when we abandon elegance and intentionality in our attire? By the end of this episode, my hope is that you'll see your wardrobe in a new light, not as a collection of fabrics and accessories, but as a tool for shaping your identity, fostering self-respect, and even enhancing your mental clarity. So let's dive in and explore how what we wear isn't just about covering our bodies, it's about shaping our minds. Let's dive deeper into how clothing influences our minds and behaviors. Psychologists refer to a concept called enclothed cognition. This term captures how the clothes we wear can affect our mental processes and emotional state. It's fascinating when you think about it. Something as seemingly simple as putting on a certain outfit can shape how we think, feel, and even act. One well-known study on enclothed cognition involved participants wearing lab coats. Researchers discovered that those wearing the coats, a symbol of focus and precision, performed better on tasks requiring attention and detail than those who didn't. The lab coat itself didn't have magic powers, but the association it carried altered the way participants saw themselves. It's not just about looking the part, it's about stepping into the mindset that comes with it. Think about how this applies to everyday life. When you put on a well-tailored suit, a crisp dress shirt, or even a pair of polished shoes, something shifts. Your posture might straighten, your movements might feel more deliberate, and your confidence might rise. That's not just in your imagination, it's your brain responding to the cues your clothing is sending. You're stepping into a role, whether it's that of a professional, a leader, or someone ready to take on the day. This goes beyond formal attire. Even in casual settings, the choices we make in what we wear impact how we perceive ourselves. Have you ever noticed how wearing old, mismatched clothes on a day off might leave you feeling less energetic, even sluggish? On the other hand, putting on something clean, well-fitted, and intentional, even if it's simple, can make the day feel more productive. The connection between our clothing and our mindset is undeniable.
What's remarkable about Enclothed Cognition is that it operates subtly but powerfully. We often don't even realize it's happening. That's why it's worth paying attention to what we choose to wear. It's not about being flashy or fashionable. It's about understanding that what we put on has the power to influence how we feel and function. Dressing well, with care and intention, becomes less about vanity and more about psychology. It's about aligning your outward appearance with the mindset you want to carry into the world.
Let's take this a step further by exploring how clothing shapes not just our own self-perception, but how we're perceived by others. That's where the psychology of identity and social roles comes into play. And it's just as fascinating. Clothing doesn't just influence how we see ourselves, it also shapes how others perceive us. In psychology, this ties into the concept of symbolic interactionism, which explores how we communicate and construct meaning through social interactions. The clothes we wear are part of that communication, acting as visual cues that tell others something about who we are, or at least who we want to be. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're walking into a room for the first time. Maybe it's an important meeting, a social gathering, or even a classroom. Within seconds, people form an impression of you, often before you've said a word. What you're wearing plays a significant role in that process. Are you dressed in a way that signals professionalism, confidence, or respect for the occasion? Or does your clothing suggest a lack of effort or intention? These judgments, fair or not, are part of human nature, and they influence how we interact with one another. Research supports this idea. Studies have shown that individuals who dress formally are often perceived as more competent, trustworthy, and authoritative. This doesn't mean you need to be in a three-piece suit or evening gown every day, but it does highlight the psychological impact of dressing with purpose. When you choose attire that aligns with the situation and the impression you want to create, you're setting the stage for more positive and meaningful interactions. But let's turn the lens inward for a moment. What does it feel like to present yourself in a way that earns respect and trust? There's a sense of pride that comes from knowing you're showing up as the best version of yourself. This isn't about impressing others for the sake of vanity. It's about taking ownership of how you move through the world and the message you're sending, both to others and to yourself. In a world where casual attire has become the norm, these dynamics are even more pronounced. When you dress well, you're not just communicating elegance, you're standing out in a way that conveys intentionality and confidence. That has a ripple effect on your relationships, whether personal or professional. People are more likely to engage with you, trust you, and take you seriously when your outward presentation matches the energy and effort you bring to the interaction. What's important to remember here is that clothing isn't just superficial. It's deeply tied to identity, roles, and the unspoken agreements we make with one another in society. When you dress with intention, you're taking control of that narrative. You're saying, I care about how I show up, and I care about the space we're sharing. This is where clothing becomes more than fabric. It becomes a bridge between you and the world around you.
Now that we've explored how clothing impacts both self-perception and how others perceive us, let's shift gears. What happens when we abandon these principles altogether? What are the psychological costs of over-casualization, and what can we learn from that shift? Let's dive into that next.
The cultural shift toward casual attire has been significant, and while it may seem like a harmless trend, it carries deeper psychological implications. Over-casualization reflects broader societal attitudes that prioritize convenience and comfort over discipline and intention. While these shifts can feel liberating, they can also blur important boundaries between work and relaxation effort and apathy, or professionalism and informality. Clothing, in many ways, acts as a psychological anchor. It signals transitions between different parts of our day, helping us shift into the right mindset for a given situation. When you dress for work, for example, the act of putting on more formal attire helps your brain prepare for focus and productivity. When those boundaries are lost, when loungewear becomes office wear, or when casual clothing is the default for all occasions, it can affect how we engage with the world around us.
A study conducted in professional settings found that employees who dressed more formally reported feeling more authoritative, confident, and capable. They also performed better in high-pressure tasks compared to those dressed casually. The clothes themselves didn't change the individuals, of course, but they triggered a shift in mindset, allowing them to rise to the occasion with greater clarity and focus.
On the flip side, over-casualization can send subtle messages to ourselves that certain tasks or interactions don't require much effort. This can lead to a psychological undercurrent of disengagement, where we approach responsibilities with less intentionality. It's not that casual clothing is inherently bad, it's about recognizing the role clothing plays in shaping how we approach our day and how we feel about ourselves in the process. There's also the social aspect to consider. When we consistently dress casually, it can affect how others perceive our level of respect for a situation. For example, showing up to a formal event in jeans and a t-shirt might signal a lack of consideration for the occasion or the people present. This isn't just about tradition, it's about the psychological signals we send through our choices. When we abandon elegance and formality entirely, we risk losing the sense of shared respect and purpose that well-chosen attire can foster.
This over-casualization has become especially evident in the age of remote work and digital communication. With video meetings replacing in-person interactions, the temptation to remain in casual or unstructured clothing has grown. But even in these contexts, dressing well has been shown to impact performance. Many professionals have shared how wearing work-appropriate attire during remote meetings helps them feel more focused and engaged, even when working from home. It's a reminder that clothing isn't just for others, it's for ourselves.
By dressing with intention, we reinforce psychological boundaries that help us navigate our roles and responsibilities with clarity. When we abandon that intention, it can create a subtle sense of chaos or disorganization, both internally and externally. Recognizing this dynamic gives us the opportunity to reclaim control, not by adhering to rigid rules, but by embracing elegance as a tool for mental alignment. Let's move from discussing the consequences of over-casualization to exploring the benefits of reclaiming elegance and intentionality in how we dress, and what that can mean for our sense of purpose and self-respect. Reclaiming elegance and intentionality in how we dress isn't just about aesthetics, it's about psychology. When we make deliberate choices about what we wear, we're creating a mental framework that reinforces discipline, self-respect, and confidence. These aren't just abstract ideas, they're tangible psychological benefits that influence how we navigate our daily lives. Elegance, at its core, is about intention. It's about choosing clothing that aligns with the roles we take on and the values we hold. When you dress with care and thoughtfulness, you're reinforcing a sense of identity that says, I am present, I am capable, and I value this moment. That's a powerful message to send, not just to others, but to yourself. One of the psychological benefits of dressing well is the way it shapes our sense of purpose. When we dress intentionally, we step into the day with a mindset of readiness. It's as if we're telling ourselves, this is important, and I am ready to give it my best. This sense of purpose often translates into greater focus and productivity. It's no coincidence that people report feeling sharper and more motivated when they're dressed in clothing that makes them feel their best. Elegance also fosters a sense of stability in a world that often feels chaotic. When everything around us seems unpredictable, dressing well can be an act of grounding, a reminder that we have control over how we present ourselves, even when we can't control everything else. It's a small but meaningful way to create order in the midst of disorder. Let me share another personal story. A few years ago, I had a particularly challenging day ahead of me. The schedule was packed, the The tasks were demanding, and I felt overwhelmed before I even left the house. But I made a choice that morning. Instead of defaulting to something simple and casual, I put on my favorite suit. The process of buttoning the jacket and adjusting the tie felt symbolic, as if I was suiting up for battle. And you know what? That small act changed everything. I walked into the day with more confidence and composure than I would have otherwise. That's the power of intentionality. It creates a shift in mindset that carries over into action.
This isn't about perfection, and it's not about spending hours agonizing over what to wear. It's about understanding the psychological impact of dressing well and using it as a tool to support your goals, your identity, and your well-being. Elegance doesn't have to mean elaborate or extravagant. It simply means choosing with care. A well-fitted blazer, a thoughtfully selected tie, or even polished shoes can send a message of confidence and self-respect.
As we bring these ideas together, it becomes clear that dressing well is less about impressing others and more about showing up for ourselves. It's about using clothing as a form of mindfulness, a way to align our inner state with the way we present ourselves to the world. When we reclaim elegance and intentionality, we're not just changing our outward appearance, we're shaping our mindset, reinforcing our values, and building the kind of confidence that allows us to thrive.
As we approach the end of this conversation, I want to leave you with a final reflection on what it means to dress the mind, not just the body. Let's explore that next.
Dressing the mind, not just the body, is about embracing the deeper psychology behind how we present ourselves to the world. It's about understanding that clothing is more than just fabric. It's a reflection of who we are, how we feel, and what we value. When we dress with intention, we create an alignment between our outward appearance and our inner purpose, reinforcing the qualities we want to embody. What I want you to take away from this discussion is that elegance isn't about following a dress code or impressing others. It's about cultivating a sense of self-respect and using clothing as a tool to support your mental clarity and emotional well-being. The act of dressing well is an act of care, a way of saying to yourself, I am worth the effort. And when you approach your wardrobe with that mindset, it's not just your appearance that changes. It's your posture, your confidence, and your ability to face the day with intention. In a world that often prioritizes convenience over care and trends over timelessness, reclaiming elegance is a way of standing out, not for attention, but for authenticity. It's a way to remind yourself that how you show up matters both to you and to those around you. It's a quiet but powerful declaration that you value the roles you play and the spaces you inhabit. As we close, I encourage you to think about your own relationship with what you wear. Are your clothing choices aligned with how you see yourself and how you want to engage with the world? If not, what small changes could you make to bring that alignment into focus? This isn't about reinventing yourself overnight. It's about taking small, intentional steps to show up as the best version of yourself. The psychology of attire teaches us that what we wear isn't just about style, it's about mindset. It's about dressing not for the mirror, but for the mind. So, as you move forward, consider how your choices can support not just your external appearance, but the confidence, clarity, and composure that come from within. Thank you for spending this time with me on the psychology of us. Until next time, remember that every choice you make, from your wardrobe to your actions, has the power to shape your mindset and your life. Be intentional, be elegant, and most importantly, be true to yourself.
That wraps up this episode of The Psychology of Us with Professor RJ Starr. Each conversation is a step toward greater understanding of ourselves, each other, and the forces that shape human behavior. Listeners are invited to continue the conversation by sharing their thoughts, questions, and topic suggestions at profrjstarr@outlook.com. Every message helps shape future episodes, ensuring the discussions remain relevant, thought-provoking, and meaningful. For those who find value in these explorations, subscribing and leaving a review is a great way to support the podcast and bring these insights to a wider audience. Until next time, stay curious, stay thoughtful, and keep exploring the psychology of us.